Namaskar, everyone. For a change in Bangalore, it's a pretty hot morning, and why not? I'm sitting with some of the top industry icons, which make the most glamorous people around. And in fact, for a change, I'm wearing a flowery shirt just to be in the right company for everyone. Uh, Unarguably, Bollywood movies and television soaps are the most popular form of entertainment across the subcontinent and beyond. India produces the largest amount of movies in the world, and that is just not a Bollywood. There's a huge regional entertainment too. And while I was studying for today's webinar a little bit, I came across some very interesting words all through, and Tollywood, Bhoji word, Pahari word, Goli word, Sandal word, Mollywood, Ollywood, Bollywood, Collywood, Deccan word, and the reviews have been fantastic. But has the coronavirus changed the film and television industry? Report says that the industry has lost globally about US 17 billion until the last month. I'm certainly not an expert in this industry and keenly looking for today's discussion. But I can say that the fear of uncertainty has hit everyone pretty hard, and the world has come to a standstill. The strict stay-at-home rule has benefited some entertaining streaming channels like Netflix, which have doubled their subscriber base, and their shares have actually soared over the last quarter. But what is the future of entertainment industry post pandemic, and in what ways will the industry change? There is no doubt that the impact of the pandemic on film entertainment in India, which currently produces over 2,500 films in a year, is going to be severe. There is a complete halt in all activities across production, exhibition, distribution. Cinemas are closed, production has stopped, distribution companies have no work. This means companies in the industry will report losses. So when will the film shoots will resume? Puneet was saying that some television shooting has started, but when will the real shooting start? Is it going to have a personal impact on the mental stability, especially in the situation the artists are in today? What is going to be the impact on technicians, crew members, set workers, some of them who depend on the daily income to run their homes? I'm sure that most TV series have also paused production and cut their season short. What next on revival? How much is the ad sales have got impacted? With the theaters being shut and no idea when they will actually open, is it an opportunity for a mid-segment films to opt for a digital platform? When cinemas do open, whenever they do, it would be a very, very different experience. And in turn, it may have a knock-on effect on box office as well, depending on how many people can attend one performance or one screening. Will this also lead a change in the consumer behavior? Can the film festivals like a Cannes Film Festivals, etc., can go ahead in some form or the other? We have an outstanding panel today, and these are the people who rule the entertainment industry to discuss all this. None of them are privy to any formal introduction, but as always, I have a very strict guidelines by my editor, Hari, so allow me to do so. So we have Alok Tandon, CEO, Inox Leisure Limited, Neeraj Roy, Managing Director, Hangama Media Entertainment, Puneet Mishra, CEO, Broadcast Business, Z Entertainment, Tanuja Chandra, Film Director and Writer. And to moderate the panel, we have Ashish Ferwani, who is fondly called as Feru in the entertainment industry, Partner Media and Entertainment Advisory, Ernst & Young. Ashish, the screen is all yours.
Thank you, Deepak, and it's an honor to be amongst all of you today, and what a wonderful panel. So I think this is the first time since the Great Depression that the world has seen a situation which
Ashish, so sorry to cut you. Your screen is not showing. Your video is...
You're on mute, actually. Ashish, you're on mute.
I'm not, but let me unmute. Hold on a second. Can you see me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think this is the first time since the Great Depression, really, that the world has seen a situation where there's been a double-digit fall in both demand and supply. It's a unique situation that the world is going through really. And I think what's happened in really reflecting what happened pretty much the rest of the world when it comes to media and entertainment, which is on one, you've seen an advertising drop of almost, between 40 and 95%, depending on whether you're on print or radio or television, on news or whatever. And at the same time, subscription, at least on paper, is holding, but is starting to show signs as unemployment creeps in. And our estimates at EY showed that the industry in FY21 could have a fall of between 16 and 22% overall. So it's a period of doom and doom. But as the title of this session clearly says, the show must go on. And to make that show go on, I think this panelist is innovative and creative people that you put in the session, which is innovation. And starting with, one of the most impacted segments, Alok, from a film exhibition point of view, what will it take to get people back into theaters? What innovation is going to happen in the segment?
Well, Ashish, hi, and good morning to everyone. Well, as we all know, that this situation, this COVID situation, has made all of us look beyond the areas where decisions often used to get culminated. So today, I think that all of us are looking beyond our usual line of sight. And that's the way I've seen every possible industry working today. I would say that it's an entire new perspective that we are looking at. And every business, whether it's in operations, finance, people, engineering, environment, all of the things are re-looking at the way they work and how they will operate in future. You talked about innovation, that how am I or my industry looking at innovation? I would say that that's the buzzword today. Innovation has become inevitable virtue of any business, and Inox is no different. And that's already ingrained in, I would say, our DNA and in our psyche. Traditionally, we have been an innovative company, whether it's technology, whether it's experiences of people, whether it's food, and this will continue. But post-COVID, there's a slightly different way where we are looking at it. What we are saying is that cinemas have always been a melting pot of emotions where people come together, they enjoy, they rejoice. But today what we are saying that we will have different type of screening for our guests. We will promote private screening, and this is totally contrary to everybody coming in together and enjoying. So we are saying that we will promote private screening as consumer offerings, wherein our guests would continue the same way of pampering and hospitality. We will look at leveraging, I would say, a massively successful loyalty program to innovate and curate some customized offering for our guests. We will show movies which they like best and any other things which they want on screen to be shown. We will collaborate with various movie studios to ensure that the content which comes is engaging and inviting. And I would also say that we will keep on engaging with various of our technology providers. Today, Inox is a home to 6 different technologies under one roof, which we call the Megaplex. And that is something which we take pride in. And today we are talking to a lot of technology supporters and providers that how do we make this engagement more enriching. Just before this shutdown took place, we had started talking about edutainment in Inox, where we were showcasing National Geographic content for children, for colleges, and people were happy seeing it on the large screen. So that's something, Ashish, we are working towards and ensuring that we open. That goes up by leaps and bounds. We have always done a lot of live screening of sports, of music concerts, and now I think there'll be a lot of more emphasis on it. We have tied up with Rajasthan Royals, with NBA, with PBL, and with various other sports governing bodies. For example, Inox was one of the 3 chains in the world to show cricket matches of the ICC World Cup live on our screens. So I think these things will continue. There'll be a lot of emphasis on alternate content apart from the normal cinemas we show, because people we know that like to watch movies on a giant screen and nothing can take away that experience. But having said all this, today a time has come when we will have to relook at various things and ensure that we give something extra to our guests. And that, I think, is the way we will innovate and take it to the next level of cinema viewing.
Puneet, moving on to you, the million-dollar question really, advertising. What are the kind of innovations you are seeing in the world of advertising? What is it that you're doing in advertising to get it back? What's your take on when it will recover, Diwali or beyond? Which segments will recover? How are you working on getting ad back?
Just first, perhaps to give a context of what's the kind of scale of impact that television advertising has had in the last 2 months on the negative side. See, it's about a 32 to 34,000 crore annual ad spend on television. These 2 months would be broadly about 70 to 80% down on ad sales, which basically means a ballpark of 4,000 to 5,000, anywhere in that range, crores of ad revenue lost for the industry. If the balance part of the year is flat versus last year, which would be a positive development, it would still be about 15% negative for the full year, just to give a ballpark context of where it has been.
And this is that you're talking about.
This is advertising. Television. This is television. I'm just talking television advertising. And television advertising would be broadly 65% of the revenue of the industry. 35, just rough numbers, would be subscription. What's been happening is obviously the advertiser is focusing on much more on the supply side of things just now, because that's really the place where the biggest issue has been, whether it's production, distribution, retailing. And that's where obviously if the supply side is constrained, the advertiser has found it more prudent to then not be advertising just now. My reading of the situation is that we will see a surge back more around the festive season time, because I think the supply side will consume a lot more time in the next 2 to 3 months. But I'm really hopeful that by the time we are in the festive season, the September, October, November season is when we will see the advertiser coming back a lot more. And I base it on 2 or 3 facts. One is, of course, the supply side would have got sorted. And already, by the way, if you're reading, there's already a reverse migration which has started. Punjab is talking of migrant labor now starting to come back. And I'm really hopeful that the resilience of the great Indian middle class, if I can call it, will bring back the country into some kind of consumption. And advertisers will see the need to then invest to build back the demand side by that time. So that's the first thing that I see as a reason why it will happen. The second is, of course, we are a country which is a positive, hope-filled country, and I can almost hear in conversations from advertisers that they are operating from that hope that it will get better. So it's almost like people are preparing for their launches, people are preparing for their events and so on. So there will be, in that sense, a push towards getting the demand going. So that's really where I believe that the money will come back around that time. Whether it will sustain or not is a $1 million question, actually. So I do see a big blip happening sometime in festive on ad sales. Subsequent to that will depend on how demand is really moving. And my own read, and I am an eternal optimist, and it might seem very filmy and well, we are from the content world, but मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि देश का किसान फिर बचाएगा हमको. I genuinely believe that agriculture will come back faster. And why that's important for the advertiser, by the way, is that money coming in rural translates to consumption the fastest. It will flow in cash into the system the fastest. So I genuinely believe that while rural and agriculture is only about 15% of our GDP now, but that's, by the way, the segment which has been growing even now. And I believe that that's where the cash conversion into consumption will be quick, and then advertisers live on the hope of this continuing, and so they will continue to then invest. So I see that cycle starting around that. Innovation, I think everyone's talking about it. Maybe I'll just share an example or two on what are the kind of things the advertisers are looking at in this lockdown period. And by the way, we believe that that will just continue. Advertisers have obviously, content has not been produced. As you know, we shut shoot around 20th of March. So advertisers were essentially looking at saying that, can you do something to create a novelty through the route of content itself within the constraints of, shoot from home and so on. And we found that working fabulously. We did, in the midst of all this, the 25-year celebration of Saregama, which is our prime property. Yeah. If I tell you some of the numbers, you're going to fall off the chair. 200 million plus was the reach of that show. 57 million on TV alone. All of it was shot, 250 plus artists, all of them shooting from home on mobile phones. All of that done over a period of just about 2 days. All of it through the mobile phones reached into, nobody was working out of offices and so on. All of it reached into places from where it was converted into television friendly output and went on air across 25 odd channels. Yeah, and 58 million people saw it. And I urge this group to just go and download and hear Pandit Jasraj and his rendition of Vande Mataram and all his, all his musicians playing from home. It will give you goosebumps. So those are the kind of things. SBI Insurance came to us, and we created an anthem for them in, I think, 6 languages in 3 days' time, and it was aired simultaneously at 9 p.m. across our network. And of course, good money was made on that as well. So those are the kind of things that I think now will be par for the course, where innovation, solutions, and which brands will seek and we have to deliver. And that's where I think, and it's a great movement. And I just want to end with one thing, with your permission, Ashish. We've always talked of change and agility. VUCA world is a language which has been talked in business now for a decade. When the circumstance came upon people is when change was almost, it had to be done, right? And the thing that I'm talking to my teams is that, imagine if instead of responding to a fait accompli that is given to us, if we could build that DNA to be ahead of the curve, to be willing to invite change as a perpetual state of existence. That to me is what we in Z are taking forward as a DNA shift of saying, be change ready and invite change and force change. That's, I'll stop there, but I hope that answers, at least in part, your question.
No, brilliant answer. But I'm just wondering, is this COVID driving a bigger shift towards performance advertising than ever before? And is that something we've got to learn to live with? Or is this just temporary?
It was already happening, actually. I use this phrase often, my team's now sick of it. The last best experience that you have of anything in life becomes the minimum expectation from that service thereafter. Right? We used to wait for 30 minutes for taxis and were comfortable. Now if an Uber is 5 minutes delayed, we want to rebook, right? Because that's how human nature is. So this was a trend that was already happening because the advertiser has seen performance marketing coming through the digital world. So we were already on that journey where we've actually built plans for our advertisers, which were linked to delivery of performance beyond reach and cost. E.g., we've done deals where we've talked of lifting the brand equity of a brand and then get, of course, there's a base level price, but there is a top up that happens for that. Or downloads of an app, for example. So those are the kind of things that were already happening, and more will happen. Nothing to do with COVID, more to do with the fact that the world was changing anyway.
Okay, interesting. Tanuja, as a director, as a screenwriter with some phenomenal films to your credit, how is talent innovating in this time? In a time where content can't be created, how does the whole thing work? The content you've been creating in the past versus the future, what's going to change due to COVID?
Well, first of all, let me say music to my ears, what I've been hearing, because, this is the thing that writers and directors want to hear all the time. And I have to say, producers and distributors are largely traditional. They've always been traditional. They want to fall back on what's safe. And directors and writers are always trying to push it a little bit, go a bit closer to the edge. So for me to hear that innovation is going to be the key word, I feel extremely excited because I'm always wanting to break the rules. So I think going just by that, looking forward, I think the storytelling will have to take greater risks. If our viewing experience is going to change, if the way we look at content is going to change, content itself must change. And I think this has been a long time, sort of overdue. For the last 2 months, of course, for somebody like me, I have been writing. I've been working on the scripts that one was supposed to produce. As by next month, I was supposed to actually get into a shoot for a series, web series that I was working on all of last year. So, well, but best laid plans of mice and men, nobody expected this. And I think that, so my biggest worry was, of course, we're planning, hypothetically speaking, we're planning, okay, next month we start prep, toward October we start shoot. But how do we shoot? So there'll be like 200 to 300 people on the set, right? We can take all sorts of precautions, but what about in front of the screen? What about the actors who are obviously not going to be wearing masks, who are obviously going to be interacting physically with each other? What happens to that? Because are we going to now have to sort of include that in the script somewhere? What about all the scripts we've written all of last year? So it's exciting, it's fun, and I think that going forward, if at all we still stick to the scripts that we've written pre-COVID, and we produce them and we make them, I do think the audience has, the viewer has the kind of capacity to look at it as a thing of the past and still enjoy it, and not have to have that in every script. But yes, stories are going to have to change at some point, because interactions are going to have to change. I think stories will change. And what better time, like he said, like Mr. Tandon said, Mishra said, that, what better time than now to just go ahead and tell all the stories we've been dying to tell, and we have not been able to, because they were too risky, too edgy, too truthful, time to fall back on the truth, I think.
Interesting, very interesting. Neeraj, moving on to you. I think when we were prepping for this session, you brought up a wonderful point about, the subscription economy. Okay, and how you believe that this is something that's always been coming, but I think COVID gives it that extra boost. Love to hear your views on that again in detail.
Yeah, sure. Hi. Morning to all my fellow panelists and to all the viewers out there. So before I respond to your direct question, Ashish, I wanted to draw upon some very interesting points which, both Alok and Puneet made, as well as, the last points on Tanuja. See, the Indian media entertainment sector as we know it is very deeply rooted within the film economy. Deepak, in his opening comments, swayed between 1,500 and 2,500 films or so. It's more like 1,700-1,800 films, about 16, 17 different languages. Almost about 3.5 to 4 billion admission tickets that were traditionally sold on an annual basis. We were to look at it just 3 months back. And this, component, the fact that this culture, the artists, the talent, the stars, who some of these stars we've known to have gone about in a year endorsing as many as 22 products which are advertised on Puneet's channels across different categories, etc. So it's not a component, that is, there's no two ways that, what we are staring at is not a short-term sort of thing. There's very significant changes in habit that are likely to happen. But I believe the resilience is already being sort of mentioned here. To Alok's point, a couple of other thoughts with regard to just what can be done in screens itself. Numerous countries have attempted. Another category that, apart from what you've already spoken about, Alok, you may want to look at is like esports as a category for opportunity in terms of viewing, whatever. Huge amount of growth that's happening in that space. And clearly, I think the production aspect has been one of the biggest deterrents. So we saw in the first 4-5 weeks, our good friend Sunil in the BARC weekly reviews would keep talking about how television had grown at one time, I believe, almost about 44, 45% or thereabouts in terms of viewership, but yet advertising was down 70% or thereabouts. Now, we emanate from that, and our business is completely a digital business. We've, in the last 7, 8 weeks, or almost about 10 weeks now, every time I've spoken to friends of mine across different industry, we happen to be in one of those unique categories, which are, I can say, have probably, I think everyone's impacted, but we're probably lesser impacted. At one level, our consumption has risen. So our video platform, which is Hungama Play, in the first 4 weeks itself saw 66% growth in consumption. The following month, it was a little, lower at about 30-odd%, but that consumption pattern is going. What that led to is people beginning to see, we also sort of sense that by and large, viewing on OTT platforms was still a very personal kind of experience. And if you see the first batch of programming, there are about 20, 25 OTT services that are there in the market across different languages and platforms. The first batch of content programming, for some reason, was sort of filled with a fair amount of profanity and occasional nudity. It was almost liberating for creators to have a platform in a certain form and work around. And for that reason alone, it was not necessarily coming into the living rooms of average middle class homes, as it were. It was still a very much a personal device kind of consumption pattern of sorts. We, as a company, have been doing about 10, 12 shows on an annual basis, and would be releasing, one show for about 4 to 6 weeks or so. We noticed the same sort of scenario because we have about 7 shows which we are not able to complete right now. But what happened was something different. We got other creators who had done shows, independent filmmakers, who started coming across and were looking for platforms for delivery in a certain way. So that was another aspect that came around. But I think the biggest move, coming to your point, Ashish, is what I sense is this is a very, very different world. So we shouldn't be surprised about cinema halls doing screenings and private screenings, etc. That's happened. I mean, one of the most fascinating things that I saw was Domino's, the pizza company in India. If you go even now, they're selling atta. And I mean it, they're actually selling basic essentials. It's like you can buy into oil, this, whatever, etc. And this is leading to, I think, a massive surge that you're likely to see as far as the core subscription-driven economy is concerned. My own belief is that what we saw in India between 2016-17, which was the first sort of 4G digital wave of sorts, where you had massive adoption purely because of drop in data tariffs, etc. Now that we've moved from almost a 15x growth of what data consumption used to be till 2-3 years back, this one is likely to result in a lot more collaborations between media as companies as well. I believe, businesses like print, which unfortunately at this point in time have fallen off the cliff, will need to look at, subscription structures. And on a standalone basis, they may not necessarily be able to do that. So in which case they will co-opt. They will co-opt with Puneet's OTT service as an example. They may co-opt with numerous others which are there in the market. And that then creates a very interesting opportunity, because the next 3 to 4 years, I wouldn't be surprised if there are 500 million consumers who are willing to allocate about 100 rupees a month for a bouquet of 4-5 services that they may go in and out of. They may be they may use it for 2-3 months, then find some content which they will like on another platform. And that, when you look at it, is roughly about a 70,000-75,000 crore market. perhaps the equivalent size of what the broader television industry is already right now, and 5x the time of the Indian theatrical business, as it were. That's going to happen very rapidly. And the reason it's going to happen very rapidly, Ashish, is we've seen the power of ARPU growth in the telecom ecosystem. Airtel as a company is at 154, already itching before the end of this calendar year to be at 200. And enough analysts who are talking about over the next 2 years that ARPU to go to about 300 as an example. All of that is not going to come only towards, data, as in, it's going to be driven on the back of services as well. And for each of these companies, every 10 rupees of ARPU increase is anything between 3 to 3,500 crores of enhancement in EBITDA on an annual basis. And a big part of that, to me, is going to come back into the entertainment economy in some form.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And there's a question from the audience, which I think is cut out for you, Neeraj. Being a serial entrepreneur yourself, is it a favorable time for new entrepreneurs to enter an OTT business today?
So the short answer of this is it a good time for an entrepreneur to get into whatever? My answer will always be yes. You've got to create the, there's a new terminology, Ashish, and you will be very familiar with this because it's folks like you who go around spreading this sort of stuff, which is called the low touch economy right now. The low touch economy is a whole new business out there. And I'm amazed, it takes you all just 4 or 5 weeks at times, and you sort of come out with trends which are, which we will be using in forums like this for the next 4 or 5 years. I remember a term which we used, Puneet will recollect this year, for almost 10 years, and we forget using it, we almost abused it, which was called convergence. 2005 में शुरू किया था, अब जाकर के, now it's too passé even to refer to it as convergence of sorts. Yeah.
Okay.
No, but to the point on OTT, I think what Indian audiences are likely to see, and I'm sure Tanuja would like to hear this, is for far too long, if you see our programming, because of a single TV household scenario, with the power of the remote being with the homemaker in Middle India as such, you had a very democratized sort of, kind of programming across all the 6-7 GECs across languages. Everyone would have a dance reality show, you will have this show, this, whatever. Whereas when you go into the big bad world of the OTT ecosystem, you discover almost 30 different genres and categories. I mean, biopics is a great sort of thing. It needn't be, because that's stuff that can be shot and put together as an interesting way with very much the today's kind of shooting environments as an example. It's just one of those kind of examples. So I think there'll be a lot more innovation, because people, when they get into the OTT ecosystem, it's more like going down the rabbit hole of sorts, and you're constantly discovering more and more. And that hopefully will create, an interesting set of, consumers and viewers for us.
Oh, that's so true. I think, if you look at the way the world is changing right now, and India is kind of leading the change in consumption, I feel sometimes, because of just the sheer number of OTT subscribers we have. If you just look at it, you have maybe 850, 900 million people who access television. You have maybe 350 million who watch online video. You have 120 million who go into cinemas. You have paid subscription at maybe 20, 30 million people paying for OTT subscription. I mean, these are huge numbers. Even if you look at the smallest number, it's bigger than the total consumption of several countries in this world. But this world is changing. And COVID has impacted a lot of it. So, Alok, I'm going to ask you a very dirty question, and you will shoot me for this, but I'm asking your forgiveness in advance. The release window question. We're all waiting to hear from you guys again. Is this a permanent change? What are you seeing?
Ashish, I doubt. And today, when we talk about the OTT or window coming down, I think that's only for a few movies. The Indian public likes to see a movie on a giant screen with crystal clear image, uncompressed sound, enjoying a soft drink and popcorn with their family and friends. So I think that that's a very short-term view we are taking of it. I think that there's complete faith in the global theatrical value chain, and that underlines the significance of cinematic experience, its robustness, and the preference among the masses. So that I think, Ashish, will continue. Yes, there'll be blips in between, but let me tell you, we all discussed about the OTT platforms, and most of us watch it for web series. Most of us watch it for maybe a movie which we have missed in the halls, and then trying to catch it up on our television sets. But otherwise, I think that the people like Tanuja and others in this forum would love to show their content on the large screen for the masses to see. Today also, the people who subscribe to these platforms are a handful. We have got 135 crore population. And I'm not a data expert, but these are very few. The last I knew that there were only television sets, only 19.5 crore households with televisions. Forget about having 2 television sets in a house. And you may say that today you are able to watch that content on your mobile phone. But let me tell you that watching a movie is a social experience. We can't have headphones put into our ears and we enjoy a movie. I will really not like to do that. But having said that,
questions, Alok, for you already on the chat. Okay, I'm going to release the first one to you. When will you Hindi be released?
Sorry, could you repeat that question?
Sorry, Puneet, you were saying something.
Yeah, if I may just come in before that question, I think the problem is that oftentimes when conversations happen, there are positions which get taken on one extreme or the other. My own experience in business has been that, nothing is an or world. Everything is an and world. Let me give the context. So, movie theaters are an amazing experience and people will keep going back to to watch movies. There's no question. The penetration of movies would be, in Hindi at least, would be 5-6%, meaning that 5 or 6% people go and see the movies once a year in the cinema. It's a big number still. And many more see it than on television. And it's both which continue to help each other. So it is going to be it's consumption which will keep growing. More is more. I have seen this now on content on everything. And all of us, if we reflect back, we'll see more is more on content. And there is a role for the cinema theaters for people to come there and see it in all its glory. And then there'll be many more who might see it on television, and there will be some who will see on the mobile phone. This whole thing of one at the cost of the other is actually a myth. I can give you 5. I'll give you my favorite example. I used to be obviously in the FMCG world before this. And in 2005, everyone said modern trade will rule and the Kirana store will die. Because, it was all one versus the other. Both have grown, and Indian consumers have different needs. It's not about content or platform. It is about the need of the consumer, and different platforms will fulfill different needs. And the same consumer may have all 3 needs, does have all 3 needs. So I think that's
totally take your point, Puneet. I'm not saying it's or, I'm saying it is and.
Sorry, I was in support of your argument.
No. I understood that, and I'm just adding more to it. What I feel is that today, cinema halls have given that the way it has come out as luxury, technology, service, an outlet for Indians to go out and enjoy. Today, and I know that I'm lynched everywhere when I say it's the cheapest form of entertainment. I'm not talking about those 4 or 5 cinema halls in the country. But today, Inox being a public listed company, our average ticket price across the country is only 200 rupees. So it means if I'm charging more for a ticket at a certain place, I'm also selling those tickets at 60, 70, 80 rupees. So I am with you, Puneet, that yes, it will coexist. It will grow. But answering Ashish's question about this windowing, I would say that till now, the world over, it is, Ashish, that a movie hits the cinemas first. There's a time lag before it comes on an OTT or any other form of viewing. And that's a value chain which has been respected till now. And I think that that gives a lot of power to the content creator for the masses to come and see what wonderful product they have created.
So now it's kind of a reaction to the fact that, you know, producers have fund stuck, working capital issues, they need to monetize and move on. Is that really what's driving what we're seeing right now?
Well, Ashish, our request to them is just wait for 2.5 months. And again, we can't tell people not to do that. It's their business model. We are nobody to come and say that you don't do this, don't do A, B, C, or D. But we're just saying everybody's in a tough situation today. We all have to help each other. As Neeraj rightly said, it's a time of collaboration. We all have to collaborate and come together and fight it out together and have a new horizon, have a new beginning. And that was the only appeal, as a matter of fact, that let's stay together for the next 2.5 months.
Yeah.
Ashish, if I, since the only person on a standalone sort of digital and OTT ecosystem, I do want to come in and say that very emphatically, that I don't believe the Indian ecosystem at this point in time can sort of overlook or get into a stage wherein the OTT ecosystem on a standalone basis can deliver back the kind of commercial returns that the theatrical exhibition business does and the broadcast business does at this point in time. So yes, what they have to be conscious of is that over the next few years, as more and more subscriptions build out, you know, that is a component which will become a reality. The examples that we are talking about so much have really been one or two, and those two have happened through two global entities who have an ability to potentially sort of normalize, you know, those costs across multiple markets where they are running their, you know, components, etc. So I don't think this is a trend that you are likely to see, you know, at least for the next 18, 24, 36 months. There will be those occasions, but cinema going is not going away anywhere in India, in an already under-penetrated market as far as theater screens are concerned.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do want to add something to this, because I was just reflecting. See, what is the fundamental economic driver for the film industry? And I might be a bit contentious here, so bear with me. Basically, the biggest driver of the economy in that sense is the star. That's what's getting it moving. Now, the movie star gets popular by getting more people to be crazy for them. And the craze comes from multiple avenues, but it starts from the cinema theater, then it happens on TV, because TV gives you the 65% reach, and the myth builds, and that's where the advertiser lines up to give them those 22 products. So finally, economics will trump everything. The economics currently, right or wrong, is with the star, and if I may add, the male star in many cases. And hence it is going to be, I mean, unless something dramatically changes, there will be, people who are creating content which is not so driven by the male star and so on. And those will look for avenues where they can make the economics work in different platforms. So it will be all kinds of things. Thriving of content is what will happen. People will have to keep figuring out where is that consumer for whom they can create that kind of content, and platforms then are mediums.
Puneet, there's a very interesting question on this topic from Viren Ghosh. He says media channels are about building franchises and star-drive movies. Continuing your point, they use this personal equity to power brand communications. And he asked that, films are nearly 9% of total M&E, broadcasting is around 50%. What will be the mix in 2025? How will games, interactive, will the mix completely change? Will there be different segments we're looking out? Puneet, your point.
I may not have all the numbers, but we did some modeling on the two dominant conversations which keep happening, which is TV and digital video. Of course, there is a big growth happening on the other aspects like gaming and VR, but the bases are small. So even if it grows 200% for 5 years or 500% for 5 years, absolutes will still, in comparison, not be as large. So if I just look at TV and digital, we said, look, let's use one metric which helps bring the two together from a consumer standpoint, and not go with impressions on TV, bark measurement, this, that. we said that measure is time spent, because finally people are spending time, right? So if you could quantify time spent on TV for watching video and time spent for watching video on digital, last year, full year, 12% video watching in terms of number of hours would have been on digital platforms. Balance was TV. We just looked at those two as the split. Over the next 5 years, we expect that total consumption will keep growing in both. Digital will grow anywhere between 20 to 30% CAGR. Television will grow on time spent in a manner so that the total this thing will be, obviously it is not going to go at 25, 30. 4 years later, we expect 25% will be digital in time spent, 75% will be TV, but both continuing to grow. Digital growing a lot more given the base. So that's the one construct that I can talk of. That's what we expect in terms of time spent. This is not money and so on. This is time spent by viewers.
Puneet, when you say 25% digital, are you including gaming and other things, or this is pure video?
This is video viewing. That's why I said this is video consumption. I'm not including gaming here. Those are, of course, going dramatically, but on a very small base, as we know, still on total revenue in the industry. But yes, growing dramatically.
Yeah. Neeraj, your point of view, there's another question from the audience on gaming. And how do you see gaming come out? Will it be a savior for the industry going forward?
So we too have a small gaming vertical, and like numerous other gaming services, there's been a big spike as far as that's concerned. You know, gaming is, in the Indian context, Ashish, as you are aware, I mean, we've done enough of these reports over the last so many years. So the traditional gaming, which is, you know, that so-called 120, $130 billion global business, which is driven by consoles, etc., is completely elusive to India. We saw a certain kind of growth as far as mobile gaming was concerned. And in recent times, there's a massive community, which is almost an underground kind of community, but now becoming more and more prominent, which is centered around this whole space of esports. Now, the moment you go into, you know, things like esports, etc., you're taking away from purely advertising-driven revenue into, you're actually getting into subscriptions, you're getting into transaction basis business. So my belief is that we are now very, very well poised for a very significant portion, as much as potentially 300, 350 million active gamers who are almost sort of, you know, also going to be coming out of the closet, as it were. And that coming out of the closet scenario is not, you know, the traditional age profile of gamers, but you will see, so like I'm sure in OTT viewing in just this period, we saw a massive spike in consumption in the age group of 35 and above. That was largely driven by their natural place for getting that content was the television screen. When they didn't necessarily get that, it got them into the space as well. Here again, I think the environment that we are likely to see, you know, still have elements of social distancing, etc. The component of, you know, commute times, all augur very well for gaming, and gaming is certainly now coming of age as far as India is concerned.
And I think we're seeing similar numbers even on the esports side in terms of TV viewership, digital viewership, the number of teams being created. I think it's fascinating.
Peru,
I want to take to
sorry,
you.
Peru, just interesting one, and maybe Neeraj, you correct me, but I heard that this was a research presentation made recently to me, which really shocked me. The data said that there are more women gamers in India than men. And this basically they were including gaming on the mobile, all kinds of games that get played, including on the mobile. And they said there are more women gamers if you take the totality of the universe.
So, Puneet, they must have mentioned that for a particular genre of gaming, which is basically, you know, casual online gaming, or what you would call as even the space of mini games. That is not unique to India alone, although, you know, that component has been on the rise. Like in the US, this category, as much as 65% of the gamers, as far as casual online gaming, games, which will, you would even take games like Candy Crush and all of those within that category as such. There is, the woman gamer is certainly on the rise as far as
that's right. They included all that, of course.
Tanuja, I'm coming to you now from back to a content question, and this is something that is very interesting for everybody. And after you answered, I'd like Pudi to answer it as well. Okay, there was content running on television channels before the lockdown. As a content creator, if you were writing the scripts for that, would you on autopilot continue where the story is left off, or would you think you need to change the stories post-COVID?
Well, actually, see, when you were discussing that, whether things will change or not afterwards, I think beyond all business, it does come down to the very basic core of it all, which is storytelling. A theater will give you a place to watch it. A producer will give you a company from where to produce it. A funder will give you monies with which to make it. But the thing that actually gives joy, entertainment, a kind of a feeling of fulfillment is the act of the artist or the writer or the director sitting in front of a blank computer screen and writing words. That's where it all emanates from. So I think that the basic core of storytelling remains as it has for centuries. I think our country is filled with stories. There's no shortage of stories. And as you were saying, that it need not be only films as opposed to digital content. It can all coexist, because digital content, which gives me personally a lot of satisfaction as to the project that I was going to do next, is an entirely different kind of story that you cannot tell in a film. A feature film cannot have all of the diversity, the landscape, the different tracks of the different characters that a series can. So I think that gives you a different kind of an experience. I would imagine that a lot of the stories that we've written, say in the last 1 year, especially if I speak about the one that I have been working on a series as well as a feature film. They both have strong enough legs to stand on that they need not be scrapped, or they need not be like, this is not going to work at all in post-COVID world. And I'm excited for that, because that is the risk that I was speaking about. That the greater the risk you take, the more unusual the story you tell, the less mainstream that it is, the more chances it has to actually cross over a crisis, So I would say that autopilot, not exactly autopilot, but yes, I think I'm still excited to make the story that I was going to be doing before lockdown. And I do think that that's because it speaks for much more than just say girl meets boy. It's not just about a girl meets boy. It's about the circumstances in which the girl meets boy. What is it that's holding them back? What is it that makes them what they are? These are the things that make something go beyond its time, But I do know, I'm aware that a lot of people, because of the money is invested, would go ahead and be on autopilot and make them, which only makes me as a storyteller more convinced about my creed, which is and the rule with which I work, which is that just to take greater risks in storytelling, not to fall back on what's safe storytelling. And to really explore. What?
Forget the formulas of the past. We need new formulas for the future. Forget all the past.
Formulas should now post-COVID be dumped altogether, because it makes no sense to have a formula anymore. It makes no sense.
On this point, I'm going to bring in Alok. Alok, do you see? We've always heard that movies are being created for that top bracket of Indians who can afford to go in the theaters and watch them. And on this formula, do you think that because it's still just 100 million people who watch, 120 million people who go to theaters, do you see a new style of theater coming up, a Janta theater, if I may call it, for the middle classes or the lower middle classes? over the next few years? Is that where growth will lie?
Well, answering your question and what Tanuja, where she left, I would say that, see, the passion for cinema in India is homogeneous, but the taste for cinema is heterogeneous across the country. So every sector would like to see a different type of a genre, a different type of a movie. And when you talked about having a Janta theater, let me just take you back to the other end of the spectrum. We found this beautiful mall in South Bombay, which was hardly working at that time. There was nobody over there. And I'm talking about the Atria in Worli. And after a lot of research, we said that, no, I don't think that any place could be better than this, than having a cinema screen. And what we did, Ashish, was came up with a cinema in South Bombay for the first time in 8 years. For 8 years, there was no expansion in that market. And you're talking about Janta Cinema. I would say that it's a research which goes behind anything. You have to look at the micro target your audiences. You have to see that what they want and then build a theater or anything around their expectations. And that's exactly what we did. So today what we are doing is that we are building theaters, whether it's in a Mumbai or a place like Kurnool or a Vizianagaram, as per the aspirations of the people, as per what they want. And that's exactly something which we are doing, that we are targeting that thing and also taking it a bit forward. I know that's not the thing that today, and I think that Neeraj and Tanuja and Puneet would be right to add to it, the content which is being made. Earlier for cinemas, I can tell you, was a multiplex content versus a single screen content. Then it became a metro versus a non-metro content. And today I see that when we release movies in a metro, how difficult, or the people who come into a South Bombay theater is totally different than what comes into a theater which is, let's say, in a Kandivali or a Ghatkopar or any other Borivali of Mumbai. So even the choices what they would like to see varies from forget city to city, but also in a same city, in different parts of the same city. So that's how I would like to say that things are changing, and we are today targeting our own guests and seeing that what we can give them.
Puneet, how are you looking
Ashish, may I come in for a second? I just want to,
yeah.
I think, to see, since Tanuja is the only person on the panel who is, representing the creative world, the creative community as such. I think to me, this is about also a time wherein the traditional business model needs to be relooked at. The traditional model used to be that you expected 50, 55, 60% through theatrical, release, maybe 30% that came from your broadcast, and the balance was really made up of digital, etc. I'll give you just to tickle the imagination of the audience that's there as well. In this period, we did, it's been about 78, 79 days or whatever. We've done about 90 odd just digital concerts. Just yesterday on World Environment Day, we put together a 1 hour, 40-minute event, which is done with the United Nations, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. And this event was mounted across 20 digital platforms, which is part of the Hangama network as such, okay? At the same time, every telecom carrier sent a notification. It was 7 o'clock to about 8:40. And that's close to about 500 million notifications which would have come across, etc. Now, obviously, this was a free-to-air thing. It was something that is done for a particular cause, etc. There are about 25, 30 talented, people from the music world, from the film world, and all who are associated with this. But what this triggered a thought in my mind was, particularly when I was looking at the space of music concerts. We are currently working on a product wherein, to me, if I can bring a quality experience at 10 rupees of a price point, knowing fully well that for us to reach 10 million consumers with their preferences, etc., and for them to easily click on that, that's like a 10 crore, collection that's possible in an environment. So I think what we are all also going to be looking at is, apart from the narrative, how do you cross collaborate? And to Tanuja, maybe she's telling a story which is for that bigger screen, but because for the first time we are witnessing an amalgam. For far too long, you had digital audience only defined as millennials, this, whatever. You had your cinema audience very much family. Your television audience, there was a little bit of a crossover across both. It is all coming together, and perhaps there is space for, you're saying that theatrical with one stop interval mission for 2.5 hours, but there is a multiplot version of it or a deeper version into those characters, etc., which is happening across. I genuinely believe that there will be interest in things like this that will happen. And it almost brings me back to that same subscription ecosystem, that maybe if you bought that ticket itself in Alok's cinema hall entitles you to that added content which you view on Puneet or my platform, as it were, as examples of what can be done.
Multimedia, multi-format, different cuts built for different purpose. We are looking at a completely new model of funding the content that we create and the businesses that we run on the content side.
And it starts with, we have to relook at the overall model in the foreseeable future. In that scenario, you have to co-opt newer ways to bring on something like that. That's where I'm coming from.
Tanuja, do you write for a medium, or do you write for, you know, overall monetization across multi-format, multi-platform? How do you do it as of now as a writer?
The format basically dictates one's writing, in a sense that, you know, if it is a series, not for television, I'm talking about for an OTT platform, it is equal to about one season would be about 3 films. And so obviously your landscape is wider, you know, so you can explore much more. Like I said, it can be more risky as far as the OTT writing is concerned. Films are by and large traditional because you know, it's all about drawing people out of their homes into theaters and buying the ticket to watch it. Of course, again, everything I'm saying is now up for question, because people are not going to be buying the tickets for a while and are not going to be coming to the theaters. So what do? I say use this time to write the kind of films, feature films, that earlier would be considered completely unviable, you know, and would be like, nahi, aisi picture to chalti nahi hai, kabhi nahi chal sakti. I say write those kind of films. You never know that by the time people start to buy tickets to come to the theaters, there might be, they might have already tasted that with so much OTT viewing, you know, and might just be sick and tired of watching the same old thing. I say, you know, I find that the slightly traditional attitude comes from the makers. It's not necessarily from viewers. Viewers are, I mean, my 85-year-old mother is addicted to Netflix, and she does not watch Hindi content. She watches English content and the kind of really like bizarre content which I never imagined she would enjoy, and she does. So I think that so how can we make rules? I mean, the binary that that Neeraj was talking about, that we should not go into black and white. Just everything isn't either this or that. I think if we just go ahead and take characters, like even in OTT viewing, it's not the male star that is dictating the show. Thankfully, there have just been huge number of brilliant actors coming out of the woodwork from everywhere, being hailed for their performances on OTT platforms. And why not? That's what it should be. In that sense, it's more democratic, you know, where everybody has a chance. It's not just the good-looking guy with biceps who can sing, who's also possibly a good actor, or not even a good actor. There are many male stars who are not good actors, but they're big stars. So I remember the time when I started out, and I was told that female protagonist films do not work, you know, and I have seen, now this is 22 years ago. Now finally we're getting somewhere where, you know, there can be a story with just a female protagonist. Of course, you need to get a female star to endorse it and to be a part of it, but at least that time has come. I think it's just, I cannot underline enough how important it is to take greater risks in storytelling. And why I'm saying this is that
what I'm taking away from you is that the quantum of content that's going to be required to power all the new media, that's coming into place, short form, long form, theater, television, digital, gaming. I think the best place to be is probably going to be in content production, because just the sheer demand for content as distribution is growing is just going to be phenomenal. And therefore, whatever stories come,
and I do
you'll
think
find
that
an audience.
the funders and the producers and I think that there should be an open heart as far as taking that risk is concerned. By that I mean, and I'm not being idealistic, I'm just saying that to put your money into something untested, and especially now having gone through the most untested time of all, I think business sense lies in that. How can business sense actually only rely on doing what has been done for so long? So I think that business might just find itself very well supported by viewers if they fund unusual, unique stories.
I'm wondering, on one side my margins are so badly hit, but on the other side you're saying take bigger risks right now. It's kind of a dichotomy of a situation over here. But coming back to another person who lives, breathes, eats, and digests numbers, again, Puneet. Okay, you had a bunch of great television shows happening, and COVID happened, and they all stopped, right? Do they all just start on autopilot as soon as you can get them going, or will you be making changes in content?
So I think since there's a lot of movie conversation, let me take that up as a reason why change will happen. See, if you go back to any of the big trends that happened in cinema, whether it was the angry young man in the 70s, or let's say the lover boy in the 90s, a lot of it had to do with the environment around as well, right? And it feeds into each other. So television is no different. And we will see, we are already going to, in fact, changes are already being made to basically serve things which are then in line with the mood of the people watching it at home. We obviously, like many others, have been connecting with people and trying to understand the mind state. And hope and optimism and positivity, for example, is probably something that is more needed. Even now, if you see the content that was being watched, apart from news, for example, a lot of mythos came in. Comedy was something which was being liked on TV. Humor is nice, and slice of life was something which was seen to be nice. So we will see those consumer trends flowing into stories. And I just want to link some of the conversations we were having earlier about the kind of stories and so on. See, I've been, for my life earlier, been a product FMCG kind of a person. And there, the world starts with saying, what is the consumer demand? What is the kind of segmentation that exists? And hence, how do you create product to target? Actually, content is a product, a great product, which is designed a certain different way. We did not perhaps think of it as consumer first in design of content. We thought of creator first, because the creator sort of writes first, and that then is the starting point in many ways. What we will now see with the evolution of various platforms and the ability of consumers to make choices is that perhaps more business people in the content world, I'm not talking the creator, will figure out what is the brief to which a content should be created because of the consumer that they want to and the business model they want to go and target. So an OTT world is targeting a consumer profile of a certain kind and hence wants a certain kind of story. I have a channel which I am, let's say, going after the Hindi heartland masses. My brief will be different. So for example, there was a conversation on biopics and we created Mahanayak Ambedkar, which we are running on ANTV. This kind of content earlier in a GEC conversation may not have been something that a typical GEC content creator would say will fly. But it became, in the week of launch, our most popular show on that channel and has really been getting us rave reviews. So it is about, I think, the big shift that will happen, and not because the business guys need it or the content creators need it. It's the sheer evolution of consumer and the choice they have, that people will start thinking consumer first and then design many stories thinking which platform will serve that consumer. So it's an end-to-end shift that will happen. And immediately, of course, on television, given that we're coming back, we are going to be making changes to suit that mood. But I do see that there will be some structural shifts in the kind of stories that will get told as well, given this evolution that we're seeing around us.
Yeah, Alok, coming to you next, there's an interesting question from Shubhi. She's saying, can theaters run series all day on weekend for people who like to binge watch? It would be great to definitely see some of the OTT stuff in a theater. But following that question with one of my own to say, how do you see the recovery finally panning out? Metro first, non-metro first? Where do you see it happening?
Okay, let me answer that first question first. We would love to show lots of web series, but then the cinematographic act has to change, because what I show on the screen has to have a censor certificate attached to it until I take various permissions. For example, if we show a Spot 7 live, we have to take n number of permissions to do that. But answering that question, yes, I would love to show a web series on the screens running 24 hours, people coming in, going out, and enjoying it. So that's the answer to that. And Ashish saying that, I think your question was, how do I see cinema halls opening, if I'm right? That was the question.
Metro on metro. Where will it all start?
Well, metro or non-metro, where will it start? Well, it depends on how the central government looks at it. What directives we get from the central government, how and when can we open, and then followed by different directives from the state government. So we are in constant touch with the center as well as various states. We are giving a lot of, I would say, representations to the government saying that how ready we are to welcome back our guests. We are telling them that how confident we are to win back the confidence of our guests by various preventive measures we are taking to ensure that they have a safe environment in our halls. But answer is today, we don't have any clue. We've been told that we are put in the third phase, and let's see what happens in the next couple of weeks, whether we open. Well, it won't be a metro versus a non-metro, it'll be a state-wise opening. That's how I think it'll be.
Right. Another, from your point of view, Puneet and Neeraj, question really for both of you. Advertising demand, do you see it coming first, metro or the regional space?
So I think there isn't going to be, given the mass reach of our channels, that much of a differentiation from the mass channels point of view. So I don't see that difference from TV advertising point of view as much. But that said, if I was to make a difference between Hindi and regionals, if that was to be looked at, even there, I'm not seeing that will be such a big differentiation. There may be some states where if the economy is a bit slower, if it moves a bit slower and all that, but no structural reason why I foresee there will be a dramatic shift between metro, non-metro, or by regions. Not at this point.
Okay, at least because you guys live off FMCG on television as the key.
Yes.
So staples are largely kind of unaffected.
Ashish, we don't live off them here.
I stand corrected. You add value to their life.
Yeah. We don't live off them here.
I stand corrected. But you are coming to you from a digital ad point of view, which has always been very focused.
No, to me, see, to me, yeah. So for us, I mean, just 7% of our business is dependent on advertising. Over the next 2 to 3 years, it will grow to about 15-18%. We are predominantly a transaction subscription driven ecosystem, which is more into microtransactions. But the answer to me is quite simple. It's really going to be driven by the industry, in terms of, and it is going to be driven by that category and its demand sort of coming back. All of us have studied enough. I think, some of those categories, whether it's travel, hospitality, hotels, etc., they are at the other spectrum in terms of the consideration set of the customers. Whereas, we keep hearing, I mean, just yesterday on one of these calls with just friends, we were exchanging notes, what's happening. They were from different parts of the world, etc. And a reference was made to the number of people at a Vijay sales outlet was so much, which obviously is then, attributing to fact that for 3 months you've been away, even your durables are no longer durables. They are coming into more like fast-moving consumer, and there are all kinds of different demands that could be, underway. Yeah? There may be a newfound love for Indians for dishwashing machines, which hasn't been the case as it were. Yeah? I think all of us on this panel have had enough experience with that as well. Yeah.
Question from the audience for you, Tanuja, saying these days a lot of individuals shifting towards valuable content rather than star-based content, which you did touch upon. Which one of these two types do you think will have a major share by 2025 or thereafter?
Which will have a major share? What do you mean? Sorry.
Valuable content or star-based content? Where does the future lie?
My heart so wishes that it would not be star-based content, but hearts are known to be wrong very often. I would say, finally the thing of value always is the story. That is the thing that touches a viewer deep in their hearts for whatever reason. That is the thing that sort of seems to jump out of the screen and go into their minds. So I think I would still say that the story, the content, I don't like using the word content because it doesn't quite imply the beauty of what a story is and what a story can do and the truth of human existence that it can convey in just one shot. So I would always want it to be the value to be with stories as opposed to stars, because stars are the vehicles, and there's something really magnetic about watching a wonderful actor whom we all love on screen. But what is it that he's saying? What is it that he's feeling? It's the emotion that he's feeling that comes purely from the story. So I know that this is not a proper answer to your question because I don't want to utter the words that it will be the star that can be the value. even though
drives that emotion, right? Is it the story which drives the emotion or the star that drives the emotion? But fair enough. I would put you in a spot. Anirudh, there's a question for you, Puneet. How could an FTA TV channel survive post-COVID when ad revenue vector has completely dried up?
So I think maybe it needs a bit more nuance to be added. I'm assuming the question is that how does an FTA channel, which is also investing in fresh content and hence has costs attached on content, but no subscription revenue coming in, how would they survive? Versus maybe other channels on free dish who may have content which is already monetized on other sources, and hence the cost of content is not there. I guess that's the nuance to be added. I think the latter have no challenge. In fact, if you look at we had pulled off our free dish channels about a year and something ago. And the assumption at that point that we had was that the pay ecosystem, the pay advertising in the Hindi GCs, for example, as an industry, I'm not talking a channel, had actually not grown for 3 to 4 years because a lot of money was going on to the free dish platforms as advertising, which we were all part of. But the place where investment was happening on content, which is pay GC, which is the source, if that did not grow, then in a way it would have challenges in future in terms of the investments that could be made on new content, right? That was the reason at that point of time we had taken the call to not have those free dish channels on air. The economics of it, yes.
And yes, we're back.
Yes, we are back. And the reason for that, and maybe first to answer the question there that came on free dish, advertising actually will be back as much as it will be on other channels. So it isn't a different behavior that we will see. It's just that the economics of it, when you're not investing in the content, makes it viable if it's a repeat content, so to speak. If you are investing in new content, it will be a challenge, I think.
But just I think adding one more kind of layer to this question, we've already seen a few channels shutting down. Delhi Aaj shut down, AXN shut down. And I read an article yesterday which is kind of predicting 30 to 40 more channels will shut down. Do you see this happening due to COVID or NTO, or what's really driving this shut down?
I think the starting point may have been the NTO, or the new tariff order, which has had impact on some of the genres where, both because of actual viewership and of course the measurement ecosystem that we have, we've seen those numbers drop, and hence ad revenues in some of those genres have dramatically slipped.
Yeah.
So there, taking Neeraj's point, the industry has also looked at the subscription part of the revenue sustaining some of those channels or not. So the shift that's probably happening is that some of those channels which we only viewed from the point of view of ad sales in the P&L, we are looking at the totality of ad and subscription, because the subscription part of it is something that is contributing and growing for some of those channels. So that is one part. But that said, there will be difficulties for some of the channels to sustain, because the COVID ecosystem, with the impact on advertising that it has had, has meant that P&Ls are getting really stressed. And if there are smaller channels who do not have the capacity to handle this for a period of time, they might find it not viable. So we will see some of that happen.
Okay, I think we have time for a couple more questions and then we'll do the wind up. Alok, question for you. Do you see drive-in theaters coming to fore? Are you thinking about anything on those lines?
I was on mute, yeah. Well, in India, it's a far ask, because for us, a good weather is only for 2 or 3 months in a year. If I look at Mumbai, we have only 2 seasons. Either it's hot or it's raining, nothing else. So, and coming out for just 2 or 3 months in a year, 2 shows in a day, I don't think it makes financial sense. Yes, it's a nice concept. There are only certain parts of the country where people would like to enjoy it, or the weather will permit us to enjoy that. But going forward in a country like India, I don't think it'll have traction. Though, yes, you could see 2 or 3 coming up for sure. But I do not think that there'll be more of them, and it'll make financial sense at all in a country like India. So that's my direct answer for this.
Okay, question for you, Neeraj. Do you see animated content will play a good role for OTT in movies or in series, as it doesn't require production activities involving real humans, but only animation studios will be at work, so COVID norms will also be followed?
No, so absolutely. The short answer of that is yes. And I'm glad that you brought this up, because I also know, hopefully our friend Biren is also on this call. It is completely an area. And again, to the broader point of trying to get Indian audiences, Indian viewers, doesn't matter which platform they are consuming this content on, and whether they're consuming it in cinematic form or television form, episodic, form or whatever. I think the category of animation certainly has great potential for growth here.
Okay, I think one last question, we really like it. Short form content, whether short form, short films, short web series, what's the future of that? Do you think they will change the way the audience earlier used to go crazy for mainstream movies? Open to whoever would like to.
See, Ashish, I'll give my quick 30 seconds on this. Globally, that is a big trend, without a doubt. I mean, on the one extreme, you've got the whole TikTok kind of sort of phenomena, which is really short form. On the other end, you've got what Katzenberg has done now with QB as an example, which is, top talent. But that model has not succeeded. Now, I don't know whether that's not succeeded because of the economics of it, but from what is seeming to come out is it's not succeeded, perhaps because of the kind of content mix that has been put forward. But principally, I believe the shorter form of content will continue to have a potential as we oscillate between screens and platforms. So there is both a bridge as well as audience habit formation that's happening into that category.
I think the short form content is also a way of democratizing, the ability of artists to take take themselves out to the larger world, and probably have a much bigger socio-economic impact, really, from that point of view. And with that, coming to one last question for all of you to answer one by one. Your mantra for the year 2020. How are you telling your teams? What are you telling your teams in order to get through the year? Hello.
Okay, telling the team that there's a lot of passion for the Indian cinema industry, and we will bounce back. A strong company always bounces back. Our fundamentals are strong. Our passion is high, and we all are eager to go back and do the best which we are known for doing, is to show movies and pamper our guests.
So stick to the fundamentals, and we will bounce back. Okay,
Absolutely.
Puneet, you were talking about something called fitter for the future. Is that your mantra for the year?
So I guess all of us are basically saying that, look, what's happened has happened. We've got to figure out now what happens when life comes back to whatever the new normal may be. And what we've been talking internally, one is we are very, very clear that given what all of us are going through, empathy as leaders is something that we are very clear will need to be something that we'll have to be practicing a lot more. The second is what we call agility in our own setup, which is that, look, there is no point in saying that I have a 1 year plan. Even 1 year plans now have no meaning, right? But if we build the ability to be able to connect dots from our past experiences and then handle whatever new situation is thrown at it, that's the thing that we're talking of. And resilience, we're basically saying those would be empathy, agility, and resilience would be the things that we will have to be focusing on, and innovation as a route to just grow further in the future. Those would be some of the things that we're talking about internally.
Okay. Neeraj, your mantra for 2020.
I think survive.
Let's do it.
Survival is the new growth. And genuinely, I also believe for the next foreseeable future, the subscription economy and retention is also the new growth.
Very important. Tanuja, as a content person, how do you look at this year?
I would fall back on my favorite word, which is integrity. I think if teams just pull out all the integrity that they're capable of, have leaner teams, work with great efficiency, work with passion to get more from less, because I can foresee budgets being impacted by what has happened in the shoots to come. So I think that, me having started in my early days from making small to medium budget films, it's something that I'm immensely comfortable with. But integrity is invaluable. You can't put a price tag to it. So I just think that if teams would summon all the integrity that they're capable of, I think that we would still make really beautiful, content and tell stories, which are bound to find viewers, because storytelling itself can never really die.
No, so true. And we need more stories to feel happier in these gloomy times. Clearly, that's the way forward.
Ashish, if I may say,
on the whole thing is innovation. Yes.
Sorry, no. Just wanted to add, and one more component on this aspect of collaboration. See, ultimately, we're going to have to get demand to increase, which is consumer confidence, get the consumer back, and that is a repercussion across every industry. And there again, this industry, the broader media entertainment industry, it's the different branches of creative that are there. How do you sort of galvanize that and bring confidence back, again, is going to be a very, very critical factor. And I'm sure all of us will collaborate towards that.
No, I completely agree. I was just going to bring up a similar point, Neeraj, in my concluding 10 cents, which is that the way we are looking at it and the way I'm looking at it, media has a pretty big role to play in getting us back. It's already played a phenomenal role in terms of dissemination of information and knowledge for the COVID, in about keeping our mental balance as well, in terms of giving us that escapism and break from the harsh world. But I think going forward, I think advertising is going to be required to prime the economy. That's a clear takeaway from my side. As supply chains come back, advertising has to come back. And I see more partnerships in what you're saying between brands and media companies to enable transactions and performance advertising, as we spoke, with the end customer. And therefore, I think media will go a long way, and we are a very important part of the industry. but I think our role will only grow more important, because post-COVID, I think that just the need for escapism, the need for knowledge will only keep going up as we all try to reinvent ourselves and come to terms with a slightly harsher reality. So concluding with Jack Ma's words, if you get through 2020 alive, you should count yourself on the right side of luck. I'll hand it over to you, Deepak, and thank everybody on the panel and thank everyone in the audience. I see we still have over 100 people. Thank you very much.
Ashish, thank you very much. I think it was an outstanding discussion, extremely engaging and insightful. I actually thought, being in a media industry, I'll say that, wish we could just press the pause button and skip straight to the next year. But seeing so much of positivity within everybody, I think it was very, very heartening. So thank you very much for this. I think there were a lot of takeaways today, including words like collaboration, innovation, AI, subscription model, looking at a content being as a product, not being a product centric, but a consumer centric. I think it's been an outstanding discussion. Tanuja, I just hope that we don't just see the children movie this year. We also see some intimate scenes and hand-holding scenes being shot in this particular year. And before I say a final goodbye, I would probably like to ask all three of you. I know Neeraj had to go, so he left. But Alok, you are a fabulous chef. What did you cook in this lockdown period? Let me just ask you this. Let me bit out of the entertainment and the media stuff.
Deepak, I think that is a one-day wonder. And luckily my wife is not in this webinar. If not, she'll really kill me. Well, nothing at all. To be honest, did not try my hand at all in the kitchen. So I think I was happy with that paneer pesto which I made and which you tasted.
And is there a serial or an episode that you enjoyed on the OTT platform, Alok?
Well, I just finished History 101, which I really enjoyed. And somebody told me to watch it. My daughter told me to watch it. So I watched History 101 and I really liked it. And yesterday I've watched The Founders, of how McDonald's came into being and how it was spread across the world. So enjoyed that.
So Puneet, what are you doing beyond watching the Z television? Is there anything else that you're watching which has really grabbed your eyeballs? Something that you really
I just like to talk about something which was on Z5, which has just gone out. Chintu Ka Birthday. I just urge people to see it.
I've seen it. It's beautiful. I love that show.
Thank you. And I will communicate that to Tarun and team, Tarun Katyal and team who created that. And yeah, that's the one thing. The other thing I was watching was, I don't know if you've seen this one. It's an older series, but Man in the High Castle. I found that fascinating. I think it was on Amazon Prime. I don't remember where I saw it. Those are the two things that come to mind. I also saw, by the way, with my daughters and my mother and my wife and the help at home, the 1979 Golmaal and the 1981 Angur. And I thought it was amazing the way content spans across generations and so many years, and we just thoroughly enjoyed those as well.
Fantastic. And Tanuja, what have you been doing beyond writing and watching films? Tell us your lockdown moment beyond the film and the writing thing.
Well, unfortunately, I don't cook, so I haven't been cooking. I have been washing quite a few bartans every day and doing some kitchen duty. Besides that, of course, reading, talking to people. I, in fact, wrote a piece recently for HT Brunch in which I mentioned that we've all begun much more to have conversations on the phone as opposed to WhatsApp messages and emojis only, so actual conversations, actually discussing, talking, reaching out, which one tends not to do because one is so busy. So I think going back to the basics in a sense, other than that, lots of anxiety, huge anxiety, but also, being with family and trying to make sense out of it all.
Right. And what has been the Feru's lockdown movement, Ashish?
So I'm doing a lot of stuff. I'm playing the guitar. I'm spending time with parents, with family. I'm having a nice time. I'm reading all my old Alistair MacLean's again. I'm having a blast doing that. Just have a little time at night. What I save in travel, I'm trying to invest in just pure, escapism and fun. It's been a good time.
But overall, we could say that entertainment holds such an important part. The consumption of the media and entertainment had definitely grown, and the consumer behavior has changed as well. So thank you very much, everyone. This has been a wonderful session. Thanks to all the attendees. And I look forward to seeing you next weekend with another round of experts on a topic on B2B services and how they're coming back into the business again. So until then, thank you very much. Stay healthy, stay safe. Namaskar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Vero.
Bye,
Thanks, Anuja and Alok.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.